What's up, guys? Welcome to Touchdown Talk, your podcast where everything and anything football goes. I'm your host, Jason. Today we have a little belated video. This is going to be about the draft. I know the draft was a few weeks ago, but it's been taking me a while to put everything together that I wanted to for this video. This is going to be my draft grades for all 32 teams. I've been working really hard on these designs, which you're going to be able to see here while I talk and go into each team. So this video is going to contain I'm going to be breaking down each division and then going in each division by breaking down each team by going through each one of their draft picks and the trades that they've made during the draft. Now this is going to be very interesting because I'm going to be giving my draft grade for the entire team's draft at the end. When I talk about the team, I'm going to be announcing all of their picks, the trades they made, what this means for them in the future this season and for multiple seasons down the road. And then I'm going to be giving them a grade for their entire overall draft this season. So let's start in the NFC East, where one of the teams made a major move this draft day. So let's start with Philly. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, in the first round, at number 13, they drafted defensive tackle Jordan Davis out of Georgia. This is a great pick and a great fit. Jordan Davis and Philly, they were one of the only teams that were interested in Davis, that met with Davis, aside from a few other teams. And Jordan Davis's mom is a huge Eagles fan. She grew up an Eagles fan. So Jordan Davis knows the team. He grew up watching them because of his mom. And now he gets to play for them. Now, what was great about this for Philly was they were sitting at number 15 and Baltimore was at 14. Now, in every mock draft, majority of the mock drafts, Jordan Davis was projected to go to Baltimore at number 14. So Philly had to jump over them, and when they did, it was like, all right, well, we know Jordan Davis was going to go 14, so that's who Philly is trading up for. And in the end, it was. They traded up with the Houston Texans. They swapped a couple of later picks to go ahead and get Jordan Davis at 13, one pick ahead of Baltimore. Now, the good thing about Davis is he is now going to be able to learn from Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, who have been in the league for a while, who are vets in this league. Now, we saw that Fletcher Cox was released at one point in the offseason and then re-signed, so it does look like Fletcher Cox might be on his way out of Philly, whether that be retirement or going to a new team. I do think he finished his career in Philly, though, so he might have a few years left if they can handle the contract and get the money done. Now, Jordan Davis is going to be able to replace him once he is gone. So learning from him now is going to benefit the Eagles and benefit Davis himself. Now, at number 18, Philly traded this pick along with the 101st overall pick in the third round to get A.J. Brown from Tennessee. Now, there was a report that came out that Tennessee didn't want to pay A.J. Brown. There was a video a couple weeks ago that maybe was A.J. Brown on the phone with Deebo Samuel. But in the end, the A.J. Brown's team and the Tennessee Titans were not able to get something done, which is why he was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is a great fit. Just a few weeks ago, we saw Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown hanging out, getting work done. They posted it on their stories on Instagram, and then Jalen Hurts was at A.J. Brown's daughter's birthday. Now, after this trade came out, A.J. Brown said that they posted that picture to stir things up. And it did stir things up. It got people thinking. And once that picture came out, once they posted that, I was like, A.J. Brown is going to go to Philly. Now, what I didn't know was how close A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts were. We found out when A.J. Brown came to Philly and started talking about his connection with Jalen Hurts that they are best friends. They've been working a lot in the offseason. They've put in a lot of work on the field together, and they've really become best friends. So now, A.J. Brown coming to Philly for only a first and third is basically nothing for the talent that A.J. Brown has. Now, Jalen Hurts has a full team on offense of guys who he knows and loves. Devonta Smith he played with in college, and then when he got onto the team last year, they were excited to play with each other once again. And now A.J. Brown, who's his best friend, now they're reunited, and they could play together in Philly. Now, this all stemmed from Jalen Hurts trying to recruit A.J. Brown prior in college, but A.J. Brown ultimately chose to go to Ole Miss, where he played with DK Metcalf. But instead of going with him in college, he is now going to reunite with Jalen Hurts in the NFL. This is going to be a phenomenal connection. Defenses aren't going to know what to do. Just like in Tennessee, where they had Julio and A.J. Brown for those few games, it's going to be like that in Philly. because now they have Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, two young studs, and you don't know who you're going to guard. Because if you put your number one corner on A.J. Brown, you have Devonta Smith on the other side, and you have Jalen Hurts at quarterback with Dallas Goedert at tight end, and then you have Kenny Gainwell and Miles Sanders at running back. It is a fully loaded offense, which is something that the Eagles haven't had in years. I don't think that the Eagles have looked this good since their Super Bowl year or back in the 2010s where they had Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin, and Shady McCoy. I think besides those two teams, Philly hasn't had a young, star-studded team like they do right now. Now, people are going to doubt Jalen Hurts, but I'm a firm believer in Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season, prove all the doubters wrong, and solidify himself as the Philadelphia Eagles starting quarterback, their franchise quarterback for years to come. I think he's going to be the guy in Philly, and I think that their first-round picks in next year's draft are either going to be traded away for players or used on the defense or to get another guy in for Jalen Hurts. But overall, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be the guy in Philly. They've proven it. They've given him all their trust, and this is a prove-it year for Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to prove them right, prove all of the doubters wrong, and lead the Philadelphia Eagles to a division title. Yes, a division title I'm projecting for the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's go back to their draft. We're in the second round at pick number 19, 51 overall. They selected a center, Cam Jurgens, out of Nebraska. Now, this pick, at first, it was good because I saw that Jason Kelce contemplated retirement. So now bringing in a center to replace him. Jason Kelce spoke about him, said that Cam Jurgens, he sees a lot of qualities in Jurgens as he has in himself, but he's going to be his own player. So Kelce, one of the best tight ends, Kelce, one of the best centers in the NFL, if not the best center in the NFL. Saying this about a rookie means a lot coming from a guy like Kelce, who's really been one of the best for years. So Kelce really coming forward, saying how Jurgens, he sees himself in Jurgens, really means a lot coming from a guy like Kelce, especially the type of player that he is. Now in the third round pick, they selected linebacker Nakobe Dean at 83 overall. Now Dean is from Georgia. He played there with Jordan Davis, so they are now getting reunited in Philly. And this is going to be a dynamic duo on that defense. They really struggled at that linebacker position. So they got a edge rusher in Hassan Reddick in free agency, and now getting a linebacker in Nakobe Dean to replace Alex Singleton, who moved on and went to Denver. It's a really good pick, a steal. A lot of mock drafts, especially mine, I had Nakobe Dean going in the first round. But injuries happened to Dean, and teams really slid on him. He slid down draft boards, and the Eagles were able to get him in the third round, a steal in my opinion for the Eagles. In the sixth round, which was their next pick, because they gave up 2/5 to trade up earlier in the draft with Houston, I think they selected linebacker Kyron Johnson out of Kansas. Another linebacker, more of an edge guy, so this is going to really contemplate and help that defense out and give them more depth, because we know that the Eagles really switch that defense around in the game. So being able to see them switch in the game, it's really going to give them more depth because of how many guys they have on that defense now. And then also in the sixth round, this is their last pick, at number 198 overall, they selected tight end Grant Calcaterra out of SMU. Now, this tight end also knows Jalen Hurts, which adds on to the offense and how well they're going to be able to click together. But that's it for the Eagles. In this draft, I gave the Eagles a A+ grade. I think the picks, Davis and Dean reuniting in Philly, they played together in the front and second level of Georgia's defense. They're reuniting in Philly. And then I also like the pick at center for the Eagles, along with the trade for A.J. Brown, because that happened on draft day. It's for their draft. Overall A+ for the Eagles, a top 3 of my draft grades for this team. And for the NFL, they are my top 3 overall draft grades in this season. Now next, we're going to go to a team who a lot of people have winning the division, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Now the Dallas Cowboys, with their first round pick at number 24 overall, they selected offensive tackle Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. Now the Cowboys, their board was kind of released in a photo, and Tyler Smith was their pick at number 24. We knew they wanted to go offensive line, and they went offensive tackle here. Now they need offensive tackle, offensive line, because they've really struggled over the past couple of years. So being able to help out that offensive line is really going to help the team. Now in the second round, at number 56 overall, they selected edge rusher Sam Williams out of Mississippi. Now a report came out today as I'm recording on Monday that Jason Pierre-Paul was a candidate for the Cowboys to trade for, but they ended up selecting Sam Williams in the second round. So really it was Sam Williams or JPP. JPP's deal fell through, so Sam Williams was the pick for the Cowboys. Third round, 88 overall, they selected Jalen Tolbert, South Alabama wide receiver. Now, they need a wide receiver. I don't know if this guy, Jalen Tolbert, is going to be a guy in the NFL. I think in the third round, we've seen guys that went late that became studs in the NFL. But I think this is more of a depth pick for the Cowboys. They lost Amari Cooper and Cedric Wilson in free agency, and they traded Cooper. So I think this is more of a depth thing to get another wide receiver in the room for the Dallas Cowboys. Now in the fourth round, they took a tight end. I like this tight end. At number 129 overall, Jake Ferguson out of Wisconsin. I like Ferguson. I like the way he plays. I like the tight end pick for the Cowboys. And he's really going to blend well with the tight end room and with the way the Cowboys run their offense. Now in the fifth round at number 12 and number 155 overall, they selected offensive tackle Matt Waletzkow out of North Dakota. Sorry if I mispronounce his name. I don't know how to really say that. But they went on another offensive lineman, which Dallas really needs. But these later picks, you don't really watch a lot of film on them. You don't know what they could really do. So until you see them on the field and how they work well, you can't. It's really hard to judge what they are and how good they're going to be. But in the fifth round at 167, they selected Deron Bland, corner out of Fresno State. Once again, another positional need that they had. They fulfilled in the draft. Moving on to another fifth round pick at 176, linebacker Damone Clark out of LSU. Then John Ridgeway, a defensive tackle out of Arkansas. And their last pick was Devin Harper, linebacker out of Oklahoma State. Now overall for the Cowboys in this draft, I gave them a C+. I think that they could have maybe traded up for a better offensive lineman. They could have drafted better players at the positions they needed. I don't think that they really made well of the picks that they had and the possibilities of what they could have had if they maybe traded up like Jerry Jones hinted at. So I don't like what the Cowboys did too much, but their team doesn't need a ton of help at certain positions. I mean, they let a couple guys go. They lost a few guys. But the way I see it is the Cowboys are still going to be a good team until they get to the postseason because they'll end up losing like they always do. But I think the Cowboys during the regular season are still going to be a good team. I do have them coming in second in the division just because I don't think that they're going to be able to pass as well as they did last year. They don't have Amari Cooper. They lost a couple of guys. And there are a lot of NFL teams got a lot better on the offensive side and on the defense side in this offseason, and Dallas was not one of those teams. Now, staying in the division, we're going to move to number 3. We're going to go to the Washington Commanders. They've changed their name this offseason, so now they are the Commanders. Now, for Washington in the first round, they selected wide receiver Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. Now, this is a guy who I said was underrated coming into the draft. I saw him going number 22 to Green Bay. I thought they were going to be able to steal him there. But I'm really glad he went earlier. I like Dotson. I think he's going to be an underrated guy. And I think he's really going to play well in that Washington team. Now, Washington has Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and now Jahan Dotson in the receiving room. But the problem in Washington is the quarterback in Carson Wentz. Don't know how Wentz is going to play. I know he's injury prone. I mean, we've seen it in the past. Every year he's been injured. He sprained both of his ankles on one play last season for the Colts. And the Colts, they had his coach from Philly. They had a team around him. One of the best running backs in the NFL. One of the top defenses in the NFL. And that team was the only team that really saw something in Wentz. Now, he went to the team. They really liked him. They wanted him there. And the head coach thought he could fix him. But in the end, he wasn't able to. And that's what really hurt Carson Wentz. But now he's getting another chance in Washington. I think that what's going to happen now in Washington is he has a better offense around him. He has a better offense built for him. But in the end, it's just going to come down to whether he gets healthy or not. I mean, the coach traded for him because Frank Reich really liked him. Frank Reich believed in him. But if Frank Reich couldn't fix him, I don't know if Washington can. And now he has to play his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, twice a year. He has to play Dallas twice a year once again. And he has to play the Giants twice a year now. So I don't know what we're going to be getting from Carson Wentz. Don't think it's going to be good. I don't think Washington makes the playoffs. And I don't like Carson Wentz as quarterback position for Washington. I think, once again, Terry McLaurin is stuck with a mediocre to low-average quarterback. I think McLaurin definitely deserves better from Washington, especially at the talent he has and the leader he is. I think if he had a talented quarterback, a top-tier quarterback, he would be the best receiver in the NFL, next to guys like Adams and Cooper Kupp. But he's stuck with Carson Wentz now, so let's just move on to later in their draft. Second round, 47 overall, they went Phidarian Mathis out of Alabama, defensive tackle. Washington's just been really good drafting defensive guys, especially on the line, like Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. These are just Montez Sweat. They've just really been good with drafting defenders. So if Washington drafted him, they think he's going to be good for them. I think it's a good pick. Now, in the third round, this came as a huge surprise to me. They drafted a running back, Brian Robinson, out of Alabama. Now, it's surprising to me because they have Gibson. They have Antonio Gibson, and he's a good running back. So this pick didn't make any sense to me as to why they would want to get rid of him. They re-signed J.D. McKissick, so I don't know why you would want another running back, especially early in the third round. But they did draft him. I don't know how much playtime he's going to get. I don't think he's going to be a big factor for the team, so I don't really like the pick there for them. Fourth round, they drafted a safety, Percy Butler out of Louisiana. They need a safety, so this pick could pan out for them. I mean, we saw them get Cameron Curl last year, and he was a hit in the draft. So maybe they just know how to get guys at the safety position later in the draft. So this could be a good pick for them if it pans out at that safety position, especially with them losing Landon Collins. Now, in the fifth pick, at number 144 overall, I think this is their best pick of the draft. Great value at the quarterback position, Sam Howell out of North Carolina. I watched a lot of Sam Howell. I watched a lot of film, and I really liked what I saw from Sam Howell. And them getting him in the fifth round, in my opinion, is a steal. I think at that quarterback position, he's going to challenge Carson Wentz. And this, if he gets the chance to start and he gets the chance to play quarterback for that team, which I think he will at some point this season, I think Carson Wentz will get hurt once again, throwing Sam Howell in. And I think Sam Howell is really going to be able to mesh well with the offense like Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. I think that Sam Howell is really going to mesh well with them. So when Carson Wentz starts playing bad again, or if he gets hurt again, I think that Sam Howell is really going to take control of the team, and that's going to be Washington's guy going forward if they put their trust in Howell at that quarterback position. So I'm looking forward to seeing Howell compete with Wentz in minicamp, in training camp, and really see if Washington gives him a proper chance to start at quarterback. Now in the fifth round, they drafted a tight end, Cole Turner out of Nevada. Logan Thomas dealt with some injuries, so a good backup tight end here in the later rounds to really replace him if Logan Thomas does go down with another injury. In round 7, they drafted a guard, Chris Paul out of Tulsa, and a cornerback, Christian Holmes out of Oklahoma State. Overall, I think it was a pretty good draft. I liked the Jahan Dotson pick. I liked the Sam Howell pick. I think those two guys by themselves really are going to blend well in Washington, especially if they can play together if Howell gets a chance at quarterback. I really would like to see Howell play for Washington. I think he gives them a better chance than Carson Wentz, because I know he's a rookie, but if you throw him in there and you give him the confidence and you see something from him in training camp, I think Sam Howell could be a guy for Washington. And that is why I gave Washington a B- grade overall in this draft. I know their later picks weren't that boom, but I didn't like the running back pick, which is why I had to drop the grade for Washington. Now, lastly, in that division, I have the New York Giants right here. And the Giants really surprised me in the draft. The first round, they had picks 5 and 7. They went edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau and offensive tackle Evan Neal. I think these are two guys who, if you told Giant fans prior to the draft that they were going to get, Giant fans would go crazy about it. So I think that the Giants getting these two guys, it's really going to show on the field. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is going to blend well with that defense, really give them a boom guy on that defense, especially with Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts in that division, who guys that can get outside of the pocket, scramble, and really run around. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is really going to help the Giants, especially in the division. And then offensive tackle Evan Neal. The Giants need an O-line. They have to protect their quarterback. Now, whether that be Daniel Jones in the future or if it's just Daniel Jones this year, I think the Giants draft a quarterback next year or trade for one. But Evan Neal is still going to be there in the future. So a great pick for the Giants, especially at the number 7 value. Now in the second round, they drafted wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. I also like this pick for the Giants because they needed a receiver. They had no receivers with touchdowns last year, and they had Kenny Golladay, who they paid a massive contract. Kadarius Toney was a first-round pick. Sterling Shepard, who was a veteran. They had Darius Slayton. So I think that the Giants were a real disappointment last year. So I think drafting a wide receiver, I think it really gives the Giants more wiggle room in what they want to do with their offense. In the third round, they drafted a guard, Joshua Ezeudu, out of North Carolina, and a cornerback in Cordell Flott out of LSU. Once again, two positions that they need, especially that corner position with them releasing James Bradberry. I know it doesn't have to do with the draft, but the New York Giants released James Bradberry, which is major news for the team. And that's why a cornerback here looks like a better pick now, especially with getting rid of James Bradberry. In the fourth round, they drafted tight end Daniel Bellinger out of San Diego State and safety Dane Belton out of Iowa. Once again, these later round picks are hard to really judge, but in the fifth round, they made 3 selections. Linebacker Michael McFadden out of Indiana, defensive tackle DJ Davidson out of Arizona State, and guard Marcus McKethan out of North Carolina. And then in the sixth round, they drafted linebacker Darian Beavers out of Cincinnati. You guys can see all the picks here. Once again, you can see each team as I go through it. You can see the designs here. And I know you can see it already, but draft grade for the New York Giants, I gave them an A. I think that the first round picks and second round pick, I think it really bolstered the team in positions they really need. I think edge rusher, offensive line, and receiver were their 3 needed positions, and they really settled them. And then even in the third round where they went a guard, I really like what the Giants did with their first 4 picks, which is why I gave them an A grade. For the Los Angeles Rams, this might be surprising, but a D+ grade. You guys see the guys that they drafted here. They didn't have their pick until the third round because we obviously know their motto and what they go by with the picks. We know what they say about the picks, and it worked for them. They won a Super Bowl this year, so obviously not having picks really worked out for them. But going through their draft, guard Logan Bruss, corner Jacoby Durant, running back Kyren Williams, which is surprising because they have running backs already. They have Cam Akers, and their running backs are there. They have an entire room. They did lose Sony Michel now, but at the point in the draft when they had Sony Michel, it was like they're drafting a 4th, 5th string running back in the 5th round. Then they drafted a safety. They have a ton of those. Cornerback, defensive end, another safety, and an offensive tackle. Now, I think that they could have went offensive tackle earlier in the draft. Andrew Whitworth retired. They lost Austin Corbett. So I think a guard in the third round, their first pick, to replace Austin Corbett. I think they could have maybe gotten another offensive tackle. But overall, I think it's a D+ grade. I don't see any of these guys really helping their team. They won a Super Bowl, so I don't think any of these guys are going to make a major impact, which is why I didn't give them a really good grade in their draft. Now, next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers. And with the San Francisco 49ers, a C-, as you guys could see. Their draft didn't really blow me away. Second round, they went edge Drake Jackson. I don't know how big of an impact he's going to have on the team. I don't like their other running back pick. Like I said, these teams that have a lot of running backs, it just doesn't make sense. But I guess the way Kyle Shanahan runs his offense, get as much running backs as you can. It worked for them, I guess, to a certain extent. Then they went a receiver in the third, which kind of can work out for them if Debo leaves. But if not, he's more of a depth guy. As guard, corner, offensive tackle, Spencer Burford, Samuel Womack, Nick Zakelji, and then later guys in the 6th and 7th. But let's talk about one guy I do want to talk about for San Francisco, and that is round 7, 262, Mr. Irrelevant, quarterback Brock Purdy. Now, Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, them drafting a quarterback, came as a shock when I really saw it, watching it and seeing the pick get announced. It came to a shock for me because you have a guy at quarterback who you traded 3 first-round picks for. You traded up to get Trey Lance. You're moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo in what it looks like. So why draft a quarterback? Now, I know it's Mr. Irrelevant. I know it's at the late round. So instead of picking him up as an unrestricted free agent, you draft him. But at the same time, quarterback just doesn't make sense for the San Francisco 49ers, especially when you have a guy who's led you to the playoffs in Jimmy Garoppolo. We know Jimmy Garoppolo is nothing amazing, but he gets the wins. And then Trey Lance, who really never gotten his shot yet. But I guess if they don't like what they see in Trey Lance, maybe take a chance on Brock Purdy. Who knows? We saw Tom Brady go round 6, pick 199, so who really knows? We don't really know what is going to happen with Brock Purdy, so anything could happen with the San Francisco 49ers and this pick. But next, we'll move on to the Arizona Cardinals, who was a surprising team. Arizona traded their first-round pick for Marquise Hollywood Brown. This pick really surprised me because they traded number 23 for him. I don't know if they didn't see potential with who was on the clock or if he was just the guy that they wanted. But getting Marquise Hollywood Brown in a trade, I think that with DeAndre Hopkins' suspension, it's going to help the Cardinals. But this is another draft where, as you can see, a C- grade. I don't see a lot of these guys helping their team. Tight end Trey McBride in the 2nd round. You have Zach Ertz, who you just gave a new contract to. So a backup second tight end, really a depth guy. And then the other guys on their team, their entire defense, their depth guys. Running back in the 6th, he's going to be a backup. None of these guys are going to be starters or key players for the team, which is why I didn't give them a good grade. But I did give them a C- because I like Trey McBride as a player. Don't know how big of a role he's going to play for the team. But I do like the trade for Hollywood Brown, especially since Kyle is going to need somebody to throw the ball to at the wide receiver position. But next up, let's move to the last team in the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Seattle was a surprising team in a sense because they had a top pick, which came from the Russell Wilson deal, and they used that to draft Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. I like Charles Cross. I think that he's going to be able to protect, I guess, Drew Lock at quarterback. And I like what Charles Cross can bring to the table. I think I had Charles Cross going earlier to the Giants because I was hearing reports throughout the holes in the NFL that Charles Cross was liked by the Giants. So that's where I projected him going in the draft. But with Evan Neal still there, that's who the Giants went with. And Charles Cross ended up falling to the Seattle Seahawks. Now in the second round, they went with edge Boye Mafe and running back Kenneth Walker. Now, this is a great pick, great value. Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. I really like this kid. I like his talent. I like the way he plays. And Seattle doesn't have a running back. I mean, Chris Carson, he's been hurt on and off. His talent is on the decrease, on the downhill. So getting a guy in the second round with the talent and young genes as Kenneth Walker, he's really young. Getting him in the draft in the second round, I really like the pick for Seattle, and I like the fit for Kenneth Walker. I think he has a chance to be a number one guy, like in this season, if Chris Carson gets hurt. But Kenneth Walker could be more of a first and second down back, where Chris Carson will be the third down back. And Kenneth Walker will be like that pass catcher for the Seattle Seahawks out of the backfield. So I'm really interested to see how Seattle uses him and how they manipulate his speed and what he brings to the table. Now, later in the draft, round 3, they drafted offensive tackle. Another good pick for Seattle. I like what they did because they need offensive line drastically. I mean, they really need offensive line. And getting another one here, I really like the pick for the Seahawks. So as you can see, I gave them a C grade because I really like the picks that they've made. So looking at it again and seeing who they've drafted, I really like the picks that they made, especially with their first 4 picks, drafting 2 offensive tackles, an edge who can help with our defense, and a running back who I think is going to be a stud in the NFL. Now let's move on to the NFC North, where we have the Bears, Packers, Vikings, and Lions. And let's get started with the Chicago Bears. Their first pick came in the second round, where they had 2. They went corner Kyle Gordon and safety Jaquan Brisker. 2 defensive back guys, 2 guys at the third and fourth levels of the defense. So I don't know how big of a role they're going to play automatically in Chicago. But overall, then they went a receiver who I like to pick a receiver because Velus Jones out of Tennessee has speed, and that's really what Chicago is building. They have Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields, and now, even though they got rid of Allen Robinson, they bring in another speedy receiver. So a really interesting draft overall for Chicago. If you go through it, they drafted an offensive tackle, Braxton Jones, edge out of Miami, a guard, Zach Thomas, running back, Treston Ebner, center, Doug Kramer, guard, Jatarian Carter, and then a defensive back in Elijah Hicks. And then they drafted a punter in the 7th round. So overall, Chicago, not a great draft. So C- overall. I don't think it was wow. I don't see a lot of these guys being major impacts for Chicago. So I don't think it was a good draft for the Bears at all. Let's move on to Green Bay, where I really like what they did in the draft. B+ grade for the Packers. Now, what Green Bay did is they drafted 2 Georgia guys in the first round. 2 guys who played with each other just like the Eagles did. They went defensive tackle, linebacker. Green Bay Packers did the same thing. They went linebacker Quay Walker and then defensive tackle Devontae Wyatt. Now, the good thing about Packers draft is they did inform Aaron Rodgers on what they were doing. They let Aaron Rodgers know where they were leaning. And the best pick, which I want to highlight here, is Christian Watson, wide receiver out of North Dakota State. They traded up to get him. Yes, they traded up to get a wide receiver in the second round. We know what kind of talent they've gotten in the second round out of their wide receivers. So Davante Adams tweeted out and messaged that on something about Chris Watson. I think that Adams really likes the pick. And Green Bay with Watson, I think it's going to work really well. He reminds me of Jordy Nelson. And seeing what Aaron Rodgers did with Jordy Nelson, I think he's going to be able to do the same thing with Watson. I like the way Watson plays, and he's going to be a great fit. Then they also drafted 2 more wide receivers, one in the 4th and one in the 7th. So overall, I think you guys could see the rest of their picks here in the later rounds. But I just wanted to highlight the receivers they took, especially Christian Watson in the 2nd round, who they traded up for. So overall, B+ grade, good for the Packers. They let Aaron Rodgers know they were in communication with him. So it looks like the relationship's getting better. Just depends on what they can do on the field. Next up, let's go to the Detroit Lions, who a lot of people were looking closely at, especially at the number 2 position. So let's go to Detroit, and with the 2nd pick in the draft, they went Aiden Hutchinson. I projected this. I wanted him to stay in Michigan just because he's from there and that's where he belongs. And Detroit got him at number 2. They really were able to sit back, relax, and get the guy that they wanted at number 2. And then at number 12, here's where it got interesting. Because if you look at the Lions and the Vikings, they made a trade. Now, you don't see in-division trades often, but the Lions traded up from 32, 20 spots with the Vikings down to 12 to get a wide receiver in Jameson Williams. Now, this came as a shock because it's an in-division trade. You're letting your division rival trade up for a guy who's going to hurt you on the field. And I think that Jameson Williams is going to be a dog in the NFL. He's going to be a great wide receiver, and especially if he can get a quarterback. Now, I know that Detroit has Jared Goff right now. I don't think he's the answer in Detroit. So once they get a quarterback that can lead them, I think pairing Jameson Williams with DJ Chark, if they re-sign him after this year, I think it could look really good for Detroit, and especially with the culture that they're building there under head coach Dan Campbell. Now you guys can see the rest of their picks. They went Joshua Pascal in the 2nd, Kirby Joseph in the 3rd, tight end James Mitchell in the 5th, linebacker 6th, edge 6th, and a corner in the 7th. You guys can see their entire draft, so you can look at the players, the college they went to, and the pick that they were given. And as you could see, the Detroit Lions got an A grade for me because they were able to get Aiden Hutchinson and they traded up for Jameson Williams. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings now. 1st round pick was the trade from the Lions. They were able to get Lewis Cine, safety out of Georgia, and then come back in the 2nd, taking Andrew Booth, corner out of Clemson. I like these 2 picks for the Vikings. I think that going defense and going in the secondary is really going to help them out because as Lewis Cine, I didn't like the pick initially because I didn't watch a lot of him in Georgia, but seeing now that they were able to get him and pair him with Harrison Smith in the safety room, in the safety position, and then getting a cornerback at that secondary position, I like what they did, especially getting a guard in the 2nd also to help out their offensive line. But the pick that surprised me here was the 1st round pick because they traded down 20 spots with the Detroit Lions, which I just talked about. But overall, you can see that I gave the Minnesota Vikings a B- grade. I think that overall they did good with Cine and Booth and the guard, and then later in the draft, they're guys that fill the needs that they need. So I like what they did here in the draft. I think that besides from the trade, I like what the Minnesota Vikings were able to do in the draft. Now let's move on to the last division in the NFC South, where you have the Bucs, Saints, Panthers, and Falcons. So let's start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now this is another team where I gave a bad grade to a D+. There's not a lot to go off of. Defensive end they kind of need because of the uncertainty with JPP. But overall, drafting a running back where you have Ronald Jones at that position, I don't know how much he's going to be able to do. It seems like these teams, they're always going running backs, and I don't know what drafting more running backs to an already filled room is going to do for a team. But overall, it could be good for them. I just don't see it happening. And Leonard Fournette also with the Bucs. So, once again, Fournette and Jones, I don't know where Rashard White lands with the team. So, that's why I gave the Bucs a D+ grade overall. But let's move on to a team with an A grade, the New Orleans Saints. Chris Olave with the first-round pick at number 11, and Trevor Penning at 19. Two guys who I love for the Saints. Now, Chris Olave, great pick for the Saints. I think he's going to fit extremely well with Mike Thomas at that receiving position, along with Alvin Kamara in the backfield. Now, once again, this is a team that has a good quarterback, I think. Jameis Winston, he had a good season last year until he got hurt. So it's not like Washington where you have Carson Wentz or Detroit where you have Jared Goff. I think that Winston is a bit better than them. And with the receivers he has, now Carson Wentz has Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. Detroit, Jared Goff has Chark and Williams. But now the Saints, Winston has Olave and Michael Thomas. I think they're going to be a good dynamic duo. And especially getting Teron Armstead's replacement at 19 with Trevor Penning, I really like the pick. Then in the second, they were able to get a corner, fifth, a linebacker, and in the sixth, a defensive tackle. But those first two picks showed a lot for me, which is why I gave them an A grade overall. Now, staying in that division, we're going to go to a team that surprised me in a way, and that's the Carolina Panthers. Now, right here, you can see that I gave them an A grade, and that is because they got Ike Ekwonu, who I think is the best offensive lineman in the draft, at number 6, and then Matt Corral in the third at 94. I really like the Matt Corral pick for Carolina. I think he's going to beat out Sam Darnold for the spot. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be the starter at the end of the season for the Panthers. Now, I like Corral for the Panthers, but I was also thinking that going into the draft, they were going to take Baker Mayfield off of Cleveland and trade for him. But that's another story. I don't know where Baker's going. I saw him going to Carolina. But Matt Corral could just be the franchise guy for them. He could be the guy that they look towards down the road. And I do think that Matt Corral will play sometime during the season, which is why I gave them an A grade, because I like the Matt Corral fit. Now, the last team in that division is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, as you can see here, a C grade, because although they did get Drake London, I like the pick with Drake London. I like what he can do. But what I want to focus here is Desmond Ridder. I think Malik Willis is going to be a better quarterback in the NFL. Now, reports came out that Atlanta didn't like a few qualities of Malik Willis, which is why they went in Ridder's direction. But I like Desmond Ridder in a sense, but I just feel that Malik Willis is the better quarterback, which is why I had to give the Falcons a C grade, because I think they missed out on what could have been one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best quarterback, to come out of this class, which I think Malik Willis is going to be. But that's going to do it for the NFC. Now we're going to travel to the AFC, start at the same spot. We're going to go AFC East, just like we did in the NFC. And we're going to start with the defending champions, the Buffalo Bills. Now, Buffalo, as you can see, got an A grade from me because I like a few picks. And let's highlight the one I like the most, and that is James Cook, running back in the second round. Dalvin Cook's brother, we saw the video on when James Cook was drafted. Now, Dalvin Cook's brother, I think they share a lot of the same qualities, and Buffalo was able to get him in the second round. And Buffalo doesn't have a phenomenal running back. Now, Singletary is usable. He's mediocre. I don't see him being a stud in the NFL. Same with Zach Moss. I think Zach Moss has the potential, but Buffalo just doesn't use him in the correct fashion, which is why bringing in James Cook, I think James Cook is going to be able to be an every down back for the Bills, which is why I really like the pick here and why I graded them really high. And then their first round pick, Kaiir Elam, Buffalo's GM talked about him on the Pat McAfee show. They're really excited for him. He asked for the playbook when he was drafted, and they sent it to him. He was looking at film, looking at the playbook on his plane ride to Buffalo, which really says a lot about him as a player, which is a great addition for the Bills, especially a team who I have going far into the playoffs once again this year. And the one I want to highlight is their punter here in the 6th round, Matt Araiza, out of San Diego State. His nickname, he's known as the Punt God. And Matt Araiza is a good punter. I mean, the power this kid has and how he punts the ball, he's a phenomenal player. He might not be the best punter in the draft, but he is a phenomenal punter, the way he can punt the ball. And I like that they got him in the 6th round. They didn't take him early. There were rumors that he could go 3rd round, 4th round, but they were able to get him in the 6th round, which is good value, especially for the player that he could be. And those 3 players I highlighted, and those are the guys that were able to sway me in giving the Bills an A grade. Now we're going to stay with the team in that division, and we're going to go with the Dolphins, who I didn't see have a great draft. I gave them a C in the draft because although it didn't happen on draft night, they were able to trade their picks for Tyreek Hill, and that is why I gave them a C. I mean, the picks that they have, linebacker, quarterback, and wide receiver, I don't think any of these guys are going to help the Dolphins out this year. I think the Dolphins are a good team already, and now getting Tyreek Hill in the draft especially, I think he's going to be the reason why the Dolphins succeed. I like Tua quarterback. I think he could prove some doubters wrong. I like his connection with Waddle. Now he's got another speed guy in Tyreek Hill. They brought in a couple free agent running backs. So I like what they did in the offseason, but I don't necessarily like what they did on draft night. But the Tyreek Hill acquisition is why they were able to get a C grade from me. Moving on to another team in the AFC East, the New England Patriots. Now, I gave them a B here because I was just so confused on what they did in the draft. Bill Belichick, I gave them a B because of Bill Belichick. Cole Strange, who knows, he could become the best offensive lineman of all time because we know what Bill Belichick can do. Bill Belichick drafts, it's just insane to see what he does on draft night. They drafted the fastest receiver in the 2nd round, and they drafted a quarterback in the 4th round. Nobody was looking at him. They took him over guys like Sam Howell, who went in the 5th round. And Bailey Zappi, the video that was released about him getting the call from the Patriots and Bill Belichick was really good. Like, watching that video, it was like really emotional to see how he acted and how the process went down. So it was exciting to see the call and how it transpired. But then you look at the Patriots, they drafted 2 running backs when they have running backs in the room with James White, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris. So a very confusing draft for the Patriots, but I gave him a B because Bill Belichick is a mastermind. He always has something up his sleeve, and no matter what he does, it's going to work out eventually. Next, we have the New York Jets, who are another top 3 team that I had in this draft. The New York Jets, I gave an A+ to, just like the Philadelphia Eagles. I loved what the New York Jets did in this draft. At number 4, taking Sauce Gardner. Number 10, taking Garrett Wilson. And at number 26, trading up to get Jermaine Johnson, which is one of the biggest deals, if not the biggest deal of the draft, next to Nakobe Dean. I think those 2 guys are the 2 biggest deals of the draft. I love what the Jets did with their first 3 picks. They traded back up into the first to get Jermaine Johnson. But let's start at number 4, where they selected Sauce Gardner. I think this was well known around the league that this was the direction they were going in. And this is a great fit for him and the Jets. Gardner's going to fit extremely well in New York, in the market, in the city, on how his personality is. He's going to be a great fit. Garrett Wilson, you're going to have that joke, Wilson to Wilson. Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson. You're going to hear, Wilson to Wilson every single time he throws a touchdown to him. Every catch, whatever Wilson does, you're going to hear Wilson to Wilson. And then he's going to complete the offense next to Elijah Moore. And then on defense, Jermaine Johnson is going to complete the defensive line. Him and Gardner are really going to fit well together, especially on the levels of defense. They're really going to fit the defense well. Jermaine Johnson on the line and Gardner in the secondary. And then in the 2nd round, this is where my mind I was a little confused when they selected Breece Hall at the running back position. I mean, seeing last year in what they were able to do and how they operated with Michael Carter, I think that Breece Hall is going to really not mesh well. It's going to it confused me because I was like, you have Michael Carter who played well for you guys. Why bring in Breece Hall in this year's draft? Which is the same thing as the Jags did, where they had James Robinson and they brought in Travis Etienne who got hurt. So it's like you already have a guy who meshes well and fits your team well. Why, mismatch the team and bring in another guy who can conflict the offense, conflict what's going on with the relationship between your other running back and the team. But overall, I think the first 3 picks warranted the Jets an A+. I think they had the best draft. I know the Eagles had a great draft day because of the A.J. Brown trade, but I think within the draft, I think the Jets had the best draft, especially with the Jermaine Johnson shock at trade up at number 26. But let's move on to the AFC West, and let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers. First round pick I liked a lot, and that is offensive lineman Zion Johnson out of Boston College. I think they need 100% to protect Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert can get to the best quarterback in the NFL status. I think he's going to be able to compete with guys like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes for that title, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. I think he's going to be in that conversation in another year or two if he's not already at the top tier. I think he's just in the second tier, which is top 10 quarterback, but I don't think he's at top 3 quarterback yet. So I think that if they are able to protect him and get more offensive line help, I think it's really going to help Justin Herbert's game. And then in the 4th round, they were able to get Isaiah Spiller out of Texas A&M. I think this could blend really well. I think that he could be a good backup to Austin Eckler. I don't think, since they didn't draft him early, I don't think it's going to conflict things. And we all know Austin Eckler is a great running back and how beloved he is in LA. So I don't think that the draft here, as in the Jets or the Jags last year, it's not going to conflict things because we know that Eckler is the solidified starter and Spiller is going to be the backup, the 3rd string, depending on where he falls on the depth chart. So overall, B- draft. I think it's just because of the offensive line. I really loved what they did. Later in the draft, they got other players, but once again, the later players aren't going to be on the team. I mean, some might get released, and then some aren't going to start. Majority of them aren't going to really see the field much unless there's an injury or they're able to shock the team in training camp and mini camp and really show themselves, and they'll become a backup. But no one's really going to be a day 1 starter except for Zion Johnson, in my opinion. But I really like Zion Johnson, which is why they were able to get the grade from me. Now, here we go with the Las Vegas Raiders. I gave them a D+ grade because I don't like anything that they did in the draft. Besides from trading their draft picks for Devontae Adams, I think that was basically all they did. They didn't hit on any of these picks. I mean, they had 2 4ths, a 3rd, a 5th, and 2 7ths, but I don't think any of these picks are really going to hit for them. I don't think any of them are going to be starters. I mean, they drafted a running back in the 4th. Same thing, you have Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, so I don't know what they're going to really do or what that's going to help. And then a guard, I don't know if he's going to start. He'll probably be a backup for the team, so I don't like what the Raiders did at all in the draft. But let's move on to a team where I gave them a good grade. I don't think they had a bad draft, but the Kansas City Chiefs, an A-. I think it works well with what they did. I liked their first 3 picks. I mean, Trent McDuffie, I really liked at the cornerback position. I thought he was going to go a little early in the draft, but I do like where he went. I like the fit. They lost Tyrann Mathieu at that, safety position. They replaced him with Justin Reed, but they also lost Charvarius Ward at corner. He went to the Niners, so they replaced him with Trent McDuffie. So the Chiefs have it down right now. They lose a guy and they bring in a guy to replace him right away. And now Trent McDuffie, younger, he's on a relatively cheap deal. He's young. He's going to be there for a couple of years before they have to even discuss paying him a big contract. And then edge rusher George Karlaftis at 30. I think that them trading up with the Patriots to get McDuffie and then waiting at number 30 to get Karlaftis, I think he's really going to fit the edge position because, like the Bills, that's where they really struggled last season. So being able to get pressure on quarterbacks, especially in their division with Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, and Justin Herbert, it's really going to help the team. And then the pick that I like a lot is Sky Moore in the second round. You traded away Tyreek Hill and you replaced him. Patrick Mahomes likes the pick. I think Sky Moore is going to be able to fit the team really well. And I really like the pick in general because you needed a wide receiver. You got a wide receiver in the second round. You didn't have to move around a lot. You didn't trade up in the first for one. You didn't, try to get one and reach for one. You waited, and you got a guy who's really going to fit your team. Your quarterback likes him already. So I think Sky Moore is going to be a good fit for the team. And then you had, the usual later round picks where they got a couple corners, a linebacker, another guard, a running back, and a safety in the second. So I think that the Chiefs all around, I think their first three picks are really good and they hit on the first three picks, which is why I did reward them with an A- grade. Now Denver, I gave them a C because they got Russell Wilson, but that's about it. Just like the Miami Dolphins, I think I like the edge rushing position because you need a guy at that position, but you have Bradley Chubb there. And then at tight end, you lost Noah Fant, so I guess Greg Dulcich out of UCLA is a good pick. But other than that, I don't think the other picks are really going to help your team much. I don't see those guys really being day one starters for the team. But they were able to swap their picks for Russell Wilson, which in a way is going to help the team. But for the draft, I didn't see them doing a lot. And then the same thing in the AFC North for the Cleveland Browns. I don't really see any of their picks doing much. I know they traded their picks for Deshaun Watson, but other than that, same thing. They traded for a quarterback, but they didn't really use the draft to really help out any positional needs. So that's why I gave them a C grade. But we're going to continue on with the AFC North here. Go to the Cincinnati Bengals. And with their first round pick, they selected Daxton Hill out of Michigan. This is a pick which I like for the team. He's really going to complement Jesse Bates well. But once again, later in the draft, they didn't have a lot of picks. And I don't think that their picks are really going to help them. I think they needed an offensive line. They didn't draft one. They didn't trade up for one. They didn't get a top guy there. I know they got a couple free agents. But I really expected the Bengals to do more to help out Joe Burrow. And they really went just a safety here and then a corner and defense, really. So I don't think that they really looked to help Joe Burrow in the draft, which is why I gave them a C grade as well. Continuing with the AFC North, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now here I gave them a B+. I like Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. I like those picks for the Steelers. Kenny Pickett gets to stay home, gets to stay in the same facility. If you know what this facility looks like for the Steelers and the Pittsburgh College, there's literally one building, and there's one door here for the college and one door here for the Steelers. There's literally like 10 feet away, 10 feet apart of each other in the two doors. And Kenny Pickett talked about looking at the other door every day and just one day what it would be like to walk through that door. And now he's going to be able to. He doesn't need to walk into the Pittsburgh door anymore. He can walk into the Steelers door now, which is really going to be good for Pickett because he doesn't have to move. He could stay where he is right now. He's staying at home, staying in the hometown. And same thing. And then he gets George Pickens, a wide receiver. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster, so they bring in a wide receiver here. And same thing with the Jets. You're going to get a joke between Pickett and Pickens. Pickett to Pickens. That's going to be the joke throughout the season when they connect, just like Wilson and Wilson is going to be for the Jets. And then A pick which I was really happy they did was their 6th round pick, tight end Connor Hayward. This is Cam Hayward's younger brother. So the Pittsburgh Steelers now have 2 sets of brothers. They have the Edmonds brothers and now the Hayward brothers, which is why I like this pick. Hayward's a fullback tight end player, so I think that he's going to mesh well. They also have the Watt brothers with TJ and Derek. So 3 sets of brothers on the team. I like what they're building there. I like the family bond there. So that's why I gave the Steelers a B+. I like the Pickens and Pickett, and I also like the family ties bringing in Hayward's little brother. Last team in that division is the Baltimore Ravens. Now I gave them a B grade because I like what they did in the first round. They were able to trade away their first round pick. No, they were able to bring in a first round pick for Hollywood Brown, which they used to draft a center for Lamar Jackson. And then at number 14, when the Eagles took Jordan Davis, they were able to select Kyle Hamilton, who's going to play really well at that safety position with Marcus Williams. I think the two of them are really going to blend well together. 2 new safeties coming in, so they're going to be able to learn from each other. And Kyle Hamilton being a rookie, Marcus Williams being more of a vet, he's going to be able to learn from Williams, and they're really going to be able to mesh well together. And then in the second round and the third round, I think here's where they really surprised me, and they got 2 steals here. I think David Ajabo's injury really shook teams up, and teams really dropped him on their draft board. But Baltimore took a chance on him. I think it's really going to pay off, especially at that edge position on defense. They struggled there last season, so adding him there is really going to help. I think he's going to be a day 1 starter for the team. And then Travis Jones at defensive tackle. He's going to be able to go into that facility. I know Calais Campbell has been there, so now Travis Jones is going to be able to learn from the vets in that defense, and he's really going to be able to take part and really become a starter. Then later in the draft, they were able to get a corner, a tight end, a punter, and then another tight end and another corner. So I think Baltimore's first 4 picks really was enjoyable to see and what they were able to do, which is why I gave them a B grade. Not exciting, not too big, but I really like what they did with these first 4 picks. So giving them a B grade is really well earned in what they were able to do, and especially with trading away Hollywood Brown, who in my opinion is not a true number 1 receiver. I think Rashad Bateman is. So now getting rid of Hollywood Brown and being able to bring in a center to protect your quarterback, I like it. And I don't like how Lamar Jackson really reacted to it. I know he lost Hollywood Brown and he didn't have that receiver anymore, but you were able to get a center who's going to protect you, especially when Lamar Jackson looks to run a lot, and now he's going to have more protection on the offensive line. But let's move on to our last division, our last 4 teams, the Colts, Texans, Jags, and Titans in the AFC South. Let's start with the Indianapolis Colts, who traded away Carson Wentz and were able to walk into this draft with a quarterback in Matt Ryan. They have their offense. So in the second round, they drafted a wide receiver in Alec Pierce, who's really going to complete that wide receiving room. They lost Zach Pascal, who went to the Eagles, so he's really going to replace him at that wide receiver position in the room. So I like the pick. It's more of a replacement pick, so I do like what they were able to do with this pick. Then at the second pick in the third round, they were able to get a tight end who I think is going to really blend well with the team. I know they've had a lot of problems, but my favorite pick and what they were able to do is Bernhard Raimann out of Central Michigan in the third. I had him mocked in the first round in my mock draft, so seeing him go in the third round was a surprise to me in a way. So I like what they were able to do. I like Raimann in the Colts uniform. I think he's going to be able to protect Matt Ryan, learn from the veterans in that offensive line. I know the Colts have one of the best offensive lines, so they didn't need to improve much with the team. I think they were a playoff team. They were just 1 win away. I know they lost in Jacksonville to end their season, but they were basically a playoff team. And now with Matt Ryan, I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs. But it is going to be a little challenging because of how high-powered that AFC is. Now the Tennessee Titans, I think that they got a little worse from last season. I think that the winner of this division is going to be the Colts and what they were going to do. So I think that the Colts bringing in Matt Ryan is really going to help them. And then the Titans, I gave them a B-plus draft because I like what they did, but it's really hard to really get a grasp of what the Titans are anymore. I mean, last season they brought in Julio Jones and then they released him. They had A.J. Brown. They didn't want to pay him, so they traded him. And Derrick Henry got hurt. And Ryan Tannehill was your quarterback. And then you drafted Malik Willis in the 3rd round. Now, I like Malik Willis. I really thought he was going to go earlier. I thought maybe 1st, 2nd round, maybe like early 3rd round. But I do like the Malik Willis pick for the Titans. And you obviously had the controversy in what Ryan Tannehill said, that he's not here to mentor Malik Willis, but if Willis learns from him, then it's good. So that was a whole nother conversation. I made a video on that, so you guys can go check that out. But what surprised me here is the trade for A.J. Brown, where they traded him to Philly, and then draft his replacement in Treylon Burks. So they chose to not pay A.J. Brown, but instead draft Treylon Burks, which is confusing in a sense because I guess they don't want to pay A.J. Brown. They want a receiver who's younger and on a lower deal. But at the same time, A.J. Brown is a solidified star. And then in the 2nd round, they were able to get a cornerback, and then obviously in the 3rd, Malik Willis. So B-plus grade in the draft. The only reason it's not higher is because they did trade away A.J. Brown. I like Treylon Burks. I think he's going to be a good receiver, but I just don't think that he's going to be better than what A.J. Brown is, which is why I did give them a B+. They had a good draft, but it just couldn't be better because of them getting rid of A.J. Brown. Now, down to our last 2 teams, the Texans and Jags, who picks were 1 and 3 in this year's draft. 2 young quarterbacks in Trevor Lawrence and Davis Mills. So let's start with those Jaguars. 1st round, they were able to get Trayvon Walker at number 1. I like this pick. I talked about this a lot leading up to the draft. And then at number 27, I really like the pick of Devin Lloyd because I think Devin Lloyd is going to really replace Myles Jack because they let Myles Jack go and Myles Jack went to Pittsburgh. So I think that Devin Lloyd is going to be Myles Jack's replacement. So I think that that's a good pick for them, which is why I gave them a B grade. I don't see them getting extremely better because of the draft, but I do like the Devin Lloyd pick and obviously Trayvon Walker at number 1. I think he's going to be a big boom guy for the Jaguars. And then lastly, the Houston Texans, a C+ grade overall. Derek Stingley Jr., number 3, he really came up in the coming weeks before the draft that the Texans were going to go defensive back. They were going to go with Stingley Jr. there. But what surprised me was Kenyon Green at number 15. There were a lot of offensive linemen there. I know Tyler Linderbaum was there. Tyler Smith was there. So them going with Kenyon Green was a surprise to me. I didn't really see them going offensive line, especially when Carlos Cross, Evan Neal, and Akamu went. So I think that that's pick surprising me is why I dropped their grade a little. I mean, I gave them a C+ grade, but I really liked their 2nd round pick in John Mechie Jr. John Mechie III. And that is why I gave them a C+. I don't like what they did in the rest of the draft. I didn't like the Kenyon Green pick at 15. But overall, Stingley and Mechie are why they were able to get a C+ in my book. But that is going to be it for this draft. If you guys are able to, go check out the designs on the Instagram. All 32 of these designs will be out eventually. I'm going to be posting division by division within the coming days. And then this video is obviously going to be out on Wednesday, of course, like every weekly video is. And then on Saturday, I will post my week in review video. But if you guys did enjoy the content, comment down below what your grade is for these teams. Which one of my grades do you disagree with, agree with? And then comment your team's grade that you would give your own team and why. And until next time, I will see you guys there.